The one thing I can say about the Cardinals, and I really mean this, for a team that really has had no realistic chance of making the postseason for quite a long time, I don't think they've packed it in. Do I think they get soft sometime, as one of our listeners said? Yeah, I do think they can be a little soft sometimes, because I think a lot of that has to do with just you lose a lot, because for most of the season your pitching has almost ruined your chance to put anything together as far as a long streak. And, you get frustrated, and you don't shut down as competitors, but maybe, you succumb more than you would. You kind of succumb to the situation a little bit. I mean, it's kind of hard. I think teams that are losers and they're not used to losing, players not used to losing, I think, though, that most of these guys, the guys that matter on that team, and there's a lot of them that matter, they hate losing, and they don't want to lose, and they don't care if they're out of the playoff race. They hate losing. They think it stinks, and they want to win. And I think it's just easy to kind of smear those guys and belittle them and act like they're a bunch of dogs who don't care. I totally disagree with that. I think they get soft at times, but there's a difference between that and not caring and not playing hard. And I actually respect the way they go about their business. I mean, you're dealing with a manager who has taken a big step back in year 2 and who has different standards for different players and thinks he invented the game, and it's like the eye rolling that goes on behind the scenes down there is pretty, so it's a little tough. You got to watch this. That the president of baseball operations quit on you even before the season started, and there's a lot of frustration, but I don't see a team rolling over. Now, if some of y'all think that that's what they are, I politely would disagree. But the record is the record, and the record is not good. And I ain't trying to, convince you otherwise. But what I am trying to do is, when we talk specifically about the players not caring or being too soft or not competing hard, that's a whole nother thing. It's not the players' fault that the president of baseball operations ignored an obvious and glaring problem: lack of starting pitching depth, and a flimsy personnel, not enough depth in the bullpen. That's not on the players. That's on the people that put the team together. It ain't on the players that the fact that the manager wanted to show everyone that he's the smartest man in baseball, and he's going to move this guy here, he's going to move this guy there, he's going to just show off, and I'm going to see. He would even say that. He said, before the end of the year, I'm going to get Brendan Donovan in center field. Is this a backyard thing, or is this a professional enterprise? Yes. Are you trying to show off for the neighbor kids or what? And so your defense suffers because of it, because of over-managing. And he's going to show everyone I like having these flexibility with these. Yeah, I think that's a plus, but you can also overdo it. That's not the players. That's a guy writing in the lineup every day. So I think these players were up against it even before things got rolling, and then it was kind of a storm, man. It just kind of washed over them. And I'm just trying to make an attempt to separate the real problem from something that's a partial problem. And by partial problem, what I mean is that, there are some players who should be doing better and could be doing better. Tyler O'Neill being the perfect exhibit. But why would you, and I get on Tyler O'Neill, but why would you, in effect, besmirch him when it's the people who run the baseball operation continue to stick by him? Why would you, and I don't know, I think most Cardinals fans are really smart and reasonable about this. Why would you, for example, point a finger at Jordan Walker because of his defense when it was the organization that failed him because these knuckleheads didn't realize, well, we have this guy Arenado, he's going to play third. You think maybe we ought to move Walker to the outfield? He's a big guy, could play for. We got Goldschmidt. What do you think, outfield? Yeah, let's put him in the outfield. This is August 5th last year.
Yep.
So even when players are not as good as we hoped or not performing as consistently well as we hope, yeah, they have something to do with it. But again, a lot of it has to do because they're only there because the organization didn't make a more aggressive effort to upgrade the roster, and also they didn't prepare a guy that was their best prospect in many, many, many years. They didn't prepare him. They brought him up to the majors before he was ready. He even knew what he was doing in the outfield. That's not the kid's fault. That's all I'm trying to say. Before I continue with this, we got our usual breathless updates from the ballpark, and through John Denton at John Denton 555 on Twitter. I'll read it verbatim. Ryan Helsley, who felt lingering pain in his right forearm between his rehab stints, had another MRI this morning. The initial evaluation was encouraging. Oh, but of course it was.
Encouraging.
He's been out since June 10th, and he's in another holding pattern. Here's what you do. You shut him down for the rest of the season, because do you really want to increase the risk he's just going to completely blow out his elbow, and he's going to need reconstructive surgery, which means there ain't no trade market for him this offseason, and he's of no use to you in 2024. Why in the hell are they fooling around with this?
I'm wondering that myself.
Again, where did the smart people go? Where did all the smart people go?
What?
Why are they even fooling around with this? Shut him down.
What is the advantage of having him come back other than, see, he pitched? Well, we just keep getting more questions. Shut it down. Let it rest. All winter.
Just shut him down.
Get him on a program in February or whatever to get him close and get him ready.
Yeah.
Or and they got the MRI. We don't. If it's that bad, get the surgery and be done with it. Yeah. I know that's a terrible way to look at it, but there is some truth.
There's a lot to be said about that. Catcher Wilson Contreras right hip soreness, and that's a legit thing. And there's nothing soft about Wilson Contreras.
No.
He felt better today, and they expect that he'll be able to pinch hit if they need him to. But Kisner's back in there, no problem with that. And then the one that's another source of irritation among us, Nolan Gorman, lower back tightness. In other words, the Tyler O'Neill disease. He's being evaluated again today by the Cardinals medical staff. Am I supposed to be comforted by that?
That's scary.
Am I supposed to say, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. It ain't no problem. He's still having low back pain when he bends and rotates, leaving him unable to play in the field or DH. He's 23 years old.
This one bothers me more and more as the season goes on.
I agree.
And I said this yesterday, and I still wonder now how much this was bothering him during his streak where he just couldn't hit his way out of things.
He's probably gritting his teeth a little bit, playing through pain.
Yeah. But at 23, you're right. This shouldn't be. It scares you when it's starting to become a chronic problem.
So let me call something up here so I can refer to my notes, and it'll only take a second. I want to talk about the Cardinals starting pitching. Some of the things, that like I was referring to. By the way, with the Oakland A's in town, I feel that I should at least make note of this because it's something amazing, really, in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. The A's come into tonight with a 270 winning percentage, I think is what it is. And hold on one second. I don't know what it is. Yeah, winning percentage at 270 coming in. Since Major League Baseball went to a 162-game schedule in 1961, only two teams have been worse than that. The 62 expansion Mets, they had a 250 winning percentage, lost 120 games. The 2003 Tigers had a 265 winning percentage. So we're seeing something truly historic, and for whatever it's worth. I am kind of fascinated by this because when you see this kind of team And you just like, well, how low can they go? You know, what's the objective going to be here? But oddly, and even though they're spiraling now, they've lost, I think, 8 in a row on the road, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, they're.
This is why I want the Cardinals to get this sweep tonight, because, you know, not that the Cardinals are taking the A's lightly, but if they are, you know, the A's are weird because every now and then they'll ambush somebody. They went through, in June, they got out of baseball hell. They had a 7-game winning streak, that was highlighted by 5 straight wins over the Brewers and Rays. And I remember that happening, but now it's like, how the hell did that happen? Earlier this month, the A's swept a 2-game series against their rival in the Bay, the Giants. So you got to stay on guard. That's why I hope the Cardinals, even though they're 11 games out, they got 12 games under 500. I actually want them. I don't have a problem with them losing because I like to see them get a premium draft pick. But athletes don't care about that. Like I said, the Cardinals have a lot of players that really want to win, and they're not going to lay down. And it bothers me that some people, I mean, I'm talking about some of the fans, some of the stuff I hear, you know, that people kind of think that about them. I just can't assign on that. The A's have the lowest 26-man payroll in the majors at $56.8 million. Arenado and Goldie this year making $61 million, just the two of them.
Oh, gosh.
Right? And if you look at the Yankees, the 4 highest-paid Yankees this season, Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Fraud Stanton, and Carlos Rodon, right?
Yes.
Those 4 salaries alone for this year, more than twice as much as the entire 26-man Oakland squad. $56.8 million. Those 4 guys are making $131 million.
Unreal.
So when you look at the A's, who's the bigger joke? Is it the Yankees or is it the A's? I say it's the Yankees. And people say, what do you mean? Well, look at the record. Look at how bad the Yankees. Look how bad the A's record. You're missing the point. They got a massive payroll. Their top 4 guys on the payroll scale make more than twice as much as Oakland's entire team.
They are awful, and I was listening to the Braves broadcast the other night after we got done with the show on my drive home, and they were mentioning the Yankees haven't been in last place this late since prior to them going on their World Series run with Joe Torre. That's how long it's been. I think it was like, I forget the year, early 90s. That's how long it's been since they've been in last place this late in the year. And you're right. And that was the other thing that the Braves broadcast said. I think it's kind of comical because they spent all that money. Both them and the Mets are both just squalling and just the Mets are real close to the Nationals in last place. But to your point about the Yankees, they are probably a bigger
They
joke.
are.
And I'm glad you brought up Giancarlo because, my goodness, I am glad he didn't end up here. For all that talk. I know he never wanted to come here, but I am glad he didn't end up coming here.
That's why I'm going to have to write about this again and do a more organized segment on this again. Yeah, I totally agree the Cardinals got to be more aggressive about upgrading their rotation, either trade or a signing. But so many of their spending decisions have been a disaster.
Yes.
And they've even got lucky because what if Stanton had said yes?
Oh.
And you got that contract as an albatross around your neck.
Yep.
What if David Price hadn't double-crossed him and signed at the last minute with the Red Sox? What if Jason Hayward had said yes and stayed here? I mean, there are other examples.
The decisions they've lucked out on.
Fowler, Fleet.
Yeah.
Extending Matt Carpenter. All these bad relievers that they overpaid. And yet, 75% is an estimate based on nothing. Gut feeling. Large percentage of Cardinals fans, which I understand, it's like spend. To which Chiefs got to spend more money. Got to spend more money. No, actually, the problem could get worse based on the track record. if they spend money, and since so many of their, quote, big moves backfire, I don't understand where it's just blanket spending without putting into perspective their historical record on spending with Mo and DeWitt. It's pretty scary. It's really scary, actually.
Knowing that they're going to have to, you had to. He said it, the other day this week. I need 3 pitchers. Okay. Well, I like that. Well, what's scary is what you're just talking about. Well, what are you going to bring in here?
You're not. You're going to get one guy from the outside.
And is that guy going to be another one of these guys we're talking about? You go, oh.
Can't be.
You spent on this guy?
They're going to have to go all out either on the trade front or the free agent front. But there's a lot of caution lights with a lot of starting pitchers. And like my friend Ben Frederickson in the Post-Dispatch says, and he's right, he's not wrong. Yeah, pitching injuries happen. That doesn't mean you just always sit outside of the market and do nothing. That's the whole point. It is, pitchers are very risky, but that doesn't justify you going into a season with basically mediocrity and guys who have a very low ceiling, or guys where you're saying, well, we think Jack Flaherty's going to be back in that #1 starter form this year. We think that, they always overrate the only starting pitchers. By the way, the Yankees since June 6th, 24-35. You talk about it. If you talk about John Mozeliak being stale, which he is, Brian Cashman's really stale. And, Brian Cashman's got a lot more generous budget than what
he does.
John Mozeliak has. But again, not that I'm saying that that's a reason why the Cardinals are where they are. It's just a lack of intelligence and initiatives where they've run aground. But at some point, the Yankees haven't made a World Series since 2009.
It's been a while, yeah.
And they spend a fortune every year. So what gives there? Another example, you just can't buy.
You can't. You're right.
The Dodgers can because they're smart. They're smarter than anybody.
And they develop their pitching.
Yeah.
Yankees aren't developing enough of their own pitching right now. Let's go buy the top guy on the market.
So, getting back to what I was going to say about the Cardinals here on the Ambassador Midwest floor, 4 o'clock hour. Here's a couple things. Since getting off to that 10-24 start, they actually have a winning record, 44-42. That's not great. There's no cause for celebration. Get out the champagne. But they've actually had a winning record, and even though they've had all these tremendous obstacles with their pitching that was caused by the front office,
right?
They're 16-14 since the All-Star break. They're 19-15 since July 6th, and they have a winning record since the trade deadline, and they've won 5 of their last 6. So overall, is this a disappointing team? Yes. Is it a frustrating team season? Yes. Is it the front office primarily responsible for this? Yes. The collapse of the defense, is that more about the players or the egotistical manager? It's more about the manager. My point being, despite all this garbage that was not of their own making, it's the people they play for. There's still some fight. There's fight left in these guys. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm backing them up on that point. It doesn't matter because they're not going to go to the postseason. And I'm not saying it should matter. I'm just saying they're still playing, man. They're still competing. You think Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado like to lose? I mean, come on. Some of these other guys. And let's talk about the starting pitching.
Sure.
It's taken a positive turn, and I think it deserves some attention. Not because I want to be Mr. Happy Talk, but because the Wainwright disaster is just completely distorting the overall look at their starting pitching. Since Wainwright's last win, the Cardinals have a 3.62 ERA starting pitchers other than Wainwright. That's 2 months ago. So you take Wainwright out of the equation just to get a sense of all the other guys. They got a 3.62 starting pitching ERA minus Wainwright, and they're 25-17 in games started by other pitchers since June the 18th. 25-17. With him, they're 1-6 because he's got a 14.87 ERA since then. Now, since the All-Star break, overall, Cardinals starting pitchers 4.62 ERA. Nothing. It's below average. There's other teams, about 11 teams worse than that. But if you subtract Wainwright's part in that, the collective ERA by other starters is 3.78. There is nothing wrong with that kind of ERA. And since the break, the Cardinals have a 15-11 record in games started by someone other than Wainwright. If you look at July and August put together, the Cardinals, even with Wainwright, have a 4.20 ERA. That's 11th in the majors since the start of July. But if you remove Wainwright from that mix, as far as just separating his stats from theirs, they got a 3.41 ERA, the other starters. And the team is 1-4 in Wainwright starts since the start of July. But they're 5 games over 500 in games started by other starters. Now you say, well, yeah, Bernie, but that's got Montgomery in there, and it's got. Well, first of all, Montgomery had a bad month, but he's good.
Yep.
Flaherty was bad. He started to put things together, and then he was traded. But this month, Adam Wainwright's made 2 starts. He's given up 15 earned runs in 4 innings. But you look at the other starters during that time, and this does not include Montgomery or Flaherty. They got a 3.27 ERA this month. And they're 7-4 when Wainwright doesn't start. So this doesn't include, those numbers don't include Montgomery or Flaherty. Some of the guys are getting an opportunity and making the best of it. Some of that is also Matz, who just got hurt, but it doesn't mean that you ignore that he was pitching really well.
Disregard.
So anyway, underneath the surface, there's been improvement. It's too late.
Right.
It's way too late because the manager ignored the defensive issues. He let the base running fall apart. And we talk about the front office messing up by their complacency and their arrogance during the offseason.
I like those numbers, and it tells me I thought that the pitching was better other than Wainwright, but every time when you did your basis there, the ERA is good enough to compete for a playoff spot with that starting pitching. With that said, the scary part is if I deliver those numbers to the guys upstairs down at the ballpark, to go, well, see, there you go. We got enough. We got enough. No, you don't. You still need to do more.
Well, that's the fear.
That's my fear because they have been better. And if you let these guys go where they're at, it's good enough to compete. I don't know if it's good enough to win, but I know it's good enough to compete and be in the conversation rather than being where they're at in last place right now. I just hope they don't use that, and that's our fear, that, well, see, these guys, we're good enough. We just got to add 1. Got to add maybe 2. No, you need to be more aggressive with that. But they have been better, and you got to give them credit. Dak scares me from time to time, but Dak has shown, for whatever reason, in the last week or so, he knows he's getting the ball. He's been able to give them innings, which is something he hadn't been able to do.
Yeah, he's been okay. He's been, he's been all right.
The others have been pretty good, too.
Dak's an enigma, though, to me, because the thing with him, I got to really work hard to, not be more critical than I should be, because the bottom line is he's made 3 starts, they've won all 3 games, and his ERA is like 3.86, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, you look at how those starts unfolded, and I got this here too. They scored 19 runs in those 3 starts.
Yeah, it helps.
And they staked him to a 7-0 lead over the Twins, an early 5-2 lead at Tampa Bay, and they gave him a 5-0 lead last night. That's a big deal. Now, he deserves credit. They gave him a nice cushion So he wasn't pitching in any one-run games, close games. But he did a good job of protecting the lead, so I give him credit for that. But still doesn't strike out people. He's given up way too many home runs in these 3 games. And his fielding independent ERA, which is more indicative of his quality, 6.05 in the 3 starts. So there's some underlying stuff there that hollers to me anyway.
Yeah.
Don't get carried away here. Because if they get carried away, that means Dak's in the rotation next year. We don't want that. They can do better. And if they don't try to do better, shame on them. But every time, that's a sad thing, man. Every time Dak Hudson pitches solidly or better than he has, John Mozeliak's upstairs with Gersh, and it's just like they're like dancing out of the camera range. They're like dancing and hugging each other. Because it's like, yeah, we can sell him, man. He can be in the rotation. We don't have to go spend money. We don't have to make any trades.
Oh, it's true.
It's sad. It's a possibility.
It scares me, though, because, and I'm guilty of this, and I admit it, because like last night, what was it, the first inning or second inning, he ended up with the bases loaded. He got 2 strikeouts to get out of the inning. Like, all right.
Yeah.
But here's what goes in my head, and it goes back to the numbers you gave with the A's. I go, yeah, but it's the A's.
Yeah.
Should I get really excited? Because I'm watching that game last night, and you watch a lot of baseball. I try to watch as much as I can. I'm a fan, and I just go, I don't really get excited about this because I don't even know who these guys are. I don't even know if any of these guys are going to be around in another 2 years playing for Oakland. It's just a lot of guys are going, I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But they got a lot of work to do, and they're one of the worst teams in baseball right now historically, and you just gave numbers that compared them to the Mets and that Tigers team that was absolutely awful. So I have trouble getting overly excited, but I do have to give him credit because he has been better. But
yeah, no, I give him some credit, but I also
grain of salt.
I'm resisting the temptation to kind of do the St. Louis media thing and it's just like overpraise him or get carried away with it.
Right.
There's still some issues there, but he's better than he had been. But we'll just see how he goes. The Liberatore interests me a lot because Hudson's going to be 29 soon.
Right.
Liberatore's 23. Liberatore's got more ceiling, more upside, more potential, more talent. And he's got a nastiness about him. And he made some changes that look like they're working. But again, it was only one great start. It's got to do more than that. But that's the guy that intrigues me because if he pitches really well the rest of the season, I got no problem with him being in the rotation.
Oh no, there should be a great upside to him if he can figure this.
If
thing
he
out.
earns it,
yeah.
I got no problem with that. Now, here's another thing I dread, okay?
There's a lot of dread. I get it.
We're going to have the fake, and it happens every year, and the people covering spring training fall right into the trap every time. You say, well, what? We're going to have the fake competition.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I wrote all of these down through the years, but so many times with starting pitching more than anything, it's like, hey, it's wide open competition, fellas. And we look forward to see how every one of them responds.
Oh, boy.
And several times, this, quote, competition, they chose the guy that did worse in spring training. So it's like, why are you lying? It's not a competition.
Yep.
You're going to go with who you want to go with. Just because one guy has, better numbers, it doesn't mean you're going to choose him. Because you're basing it on his stuff and you're basing it on what all the numbers tell you. You're basing it on, what kind of competition? So they're going to play that. They're going to go with that nonsense in 2024. And I hate to say it because they're my friends, but everyone down there is going to play along with that. It's got it, yeah.
Wide open.
Hey, this is going to be good. Every one of these guys got to win a spot in the rotation. Every one of them's got to earn it. Got to earn it. Competition. Going to be a competition. Talking. blabbing, doing stand-ups. Oh, it's wide open competition. 4 starting pitching jobs on the line, and they're all competing for it. No, they're not. But go with that narrative because it's a fun narrative and it's more interesting that way.
I've seen it too many times. You go, hey, why is the guy with the 5 ERA getting the job? Well, the last time when he got lit, he was working on things.
Yeah, right.
He was just trying to get a slider. He's just working on it. He'll be fine.
It's just like Jordan Walker. He didn't hit in the final 2.5 weeks of spring training. It was a ground ball. I talked about it.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yep.
So I don't like this because he had a problem in the minor leagues hitting too many ground balls. I don't like this. I'm not going to say it's nothing. I'm not going to overreact. I just want to go on record saying this. It's a little concerning to me. How much, we'll find out. Well, he was back in the minor leagues less than a month into the season. Although, in retrospect, they probably didn't have to do that. No. But when you have your front office gives the manager 15 outfielders and you're in a perpetual logjam, and you don't play the right guys anyway. So say, well, we get him down there, he can work on his launch angle, and then we'll try to decide which 3 of these 27,000 outfielders we have will win a starting job.
Text line. DeWitt's probably the one dancing. He's the one that would save all the coin. About Dak Prescott. That's good.
Oh, he would save coin. The only thing worse than saving coin is having John Mozeliak misspend the money on a big-ticket contract.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I have no idea why people just fail to grasp that. What pitching have they paid for? Matt's,
yeah,
$44 million. Disappointing. And he does not have a track record of being available as much as he should be. $32 million for Brett Cecil.
A lot of the free agent relievers.
20-some million for Andrew Miller. $80 million for Mike Leake. Who else? There's more to it than that.
Well, do you count Verhagen?
Well,
he was free agent guy.
It wasn't like a massive contract, but
he that's the point. They're going to have to get into the bullpen. And in fact, one of the texters asked this question: do you think what is it here? I just lost it. Sorry, but do you think addressing the bullpen is just as important as starting pitching for next year?
Starting pitching's got to be first because everything flows from that. In terms of priority, yeah. Your bullpen turns to mush when your starting pitchers don't give you innings and you're having to front load relievers in the game all the time. But they did not go into the season with a sturdy bullpen, so this was somewhat predictable. But no, there's a mitigating factor, which is starting pitching. This applies to all 30 teams. If your starters are getting knocked out of games early, or they're pitching themselves out of games because they don't throw strikes and they don't attack, and you put a bad defense behind them in St. Louis, where you're asking your pitchers, basically your starters, to get extra outs because they're not making the plays that they should, to get him into the dugout sooner rather than later, to get that third out, So I'm not going to say that the bullpen's just as important as the rotation. They work hand in hand, but you really start to have problems when your rotation just collapses, and there's very little you can count on.